Welcome back to Confront Your Mind. I'm Jolynn.
I'm Tiffany. Join us as we talk about how to confront the uncomfortable in life,
while also allowing space for laughter as we learn.
Welcome back.
Welcome back.
Thanks for listening, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe so you don't miss the next video.
Yes. Today we're going to be talking about connection, and I forgot for a minute, connection and social, which is crazy because we just recorded this whole episode and it was only recorded halfway through, so
My phone dies really quickly, so
but it's funny because I was like, that's hilarious that I just forgot it even though we just recorded it.
I was thinking the same thing. Yeah.
But today we're going to be talking about human connection and the importance of socialization and just like feeling that connection. And so we would love to hear y'all's stories with connection and being connected to people, whether that's in a large group or...
What was that? I wasn't even looking at you, so I don't quite know what happened.
I don't even know what happened, but that was hilarious.
What she's saying, though, is...
whether it's in a large group or in a one-on-one situation. But
yeah, just share
your stories.
Share a time that... like human connection has really helped you or, benefited
had an impact on your life.
Yeah.
But yeah. So as always, or not always, typically, we'll start with the definition.
Yeah. So this time we really liked, so both of us in school learned about Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Yes, we did.
Yes, we sure did. And so a lot of times it comes up. So, but it is interesting though, because in the hierarchy of needs, it talks about like basic human needs.
Yes.
And one of the things that is part of it is human connection.
Yes.
Which is very interesting because you think of like, isn't it like higher than like food? Like whenever it's like a child, isn't it like human connection is like higher than like food and shelter and stuff?
I'm not sure. I honestly don't know.
I could be wrong,
lands on the thing.
But I felt like I remembered that because I remember it being.
I know,
shocking.
like self-actualization is at the top, but that's because it's not necessary. So it goes from the base to the top.
Mm-hmm. Maybe I have that flipped in my head.
So you want to go to like the top.
But anyway, so I'm like thinking of it in my head. But anyway, so Maslow says that human connection is feeling part of a group larger than oneself, which is really cool because like we talked about in our last episode, actually, about nature and how when you're out in nature, you feel like you're a part of something bigger than yourself. The same applies whenever you're with people and whenever you're with a group or even just another individual and you feel like part of something. It just makes you realize that like more is going on than just like what you're experiencing, which can be really comforting and encouraging. And another thing that he says is that it's an essential component in the self-actualization process. And so that's what you were mentioning. It's like a piece of that self-actualization is human connection and realizing like how you connect to other people, which is interesting.
Absolutely. I love that definition. It took us a minute to find a good definition for this podcast because we didn't really like any of the ones around socialization and connection because it wasn't just like, it didn't focus on that like general point of view with connection and like finding like, and not just like honing in specifically on like, what does it mean to connect? No, it was like more like we wanted it to be more like why is it important for humans to connect? Because at the end of the day, like I say in a lot of our videos, like human beings are connection based, and so it's so important for us to like have that connection. And so I think like, even thinking back on my life and like my experiences, I think it's really funny to think about how like and I think it's an interesting phenomenon to explore too around why does connection, especially for me, like in large groups, seems scary because I'm so like there's been times where like I've been invited to like a friend's birthday party or like a housewarming party and like I like will talk to my husband and I'll just be like, I don't want to go, like do we have to go, and like even like little kids too, like I don't want to go, like where they scream and cry and they're like, no, you can't make me. And it's like it's so interesting how we like create it to be this thing that's like really scary
Like social anxiety is a big
social
thing.
anxiety, yeah. And I think it's not so much like the opportunity for connection, but the opportunity for rejection.
That's
that
true.
people
Like that's
see.
the fear based in it.
Yeah, and I think even I see it too. Like a lot of times when we see it, and I think even it becomes a part of like this, especially now, like, you know, with cancel culture and like all this stuff. Like I think it's really scary to think about being a part of a group and being like, you know, like seen and like getting canceled or like, you know, not like being like whatever. And I think that's really scary when you think about it.
Well, that's like how we've talked about, we've also talked about previously, but like it does apply here with the, like we talked about the identity versus isolation.
Yes.
And how that's like a very important and defining time in your life. Like I think it's like during adolescence or something is whenever it's like identity versus isolation. It's like, am I going to find my place or am I going to be isolated? And that's like the concern and the where your focus is kind of.
Right.
And I think like it almost continues on. Like I know it's like based in adolescence whenever that's like the biggest thing, but it definitely still continues on because there's times in your life where, you know, as an example, like whenever you leave college, like say you found your group of people in college or your group of friends that you belong to or like all the people that are in the same major as you or whatever, but then you leave college and like before you start your job sometimes you know you're in that like limbo stage where you're kind of like, okay, like who do I belong with right now? And it feels like, I don't know, almost like for me it's like you're almost on edge when you don't have that like sense of belonging.
Yeah, I love that you said that, like that limbo stage. I think that's a really good way to put it, is because I think it's really hard. I think it's really interesting that it's hard. It seems harder now than it was a few decades ago to make connection with people when we have so much more like technology to connect
Yeah, that's
us.
true.
But I also think that technology, we're getting into a different tangent.
Yeah.
But I also think that technology is what makes connection hard, is because it also makes the opportunity for rejection 10 times bigger. Because it's like, you know, I think that's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's just not like, one thing I do want to say is that social media is not like a true human connection.
Yes.
Whereas I think like, you know, like you said a couple decades ago, like before social media was a big thing, it was probably a lot more like human connection where you're like sitting in person with somebody like talking.
Ooh, yes. That makes me think of hormones and like hormones and... I got this wrong in the one we recorded right before this.
It's like so deja vu. It's now. So fun.
Yeah. But hormones, like you have the love hormone, the connection hormone is oxytocin. And so like when you're with somebody and you're connecting with somebody and you're experiencing that community, that's oxytocin that's being released in the brain, and it feels really good, right? Like that's a feel good hormone.
Yeah.
And then, but like with social media and like scrolling and technology, like video games, stuff like that, which I love video games, but like, you know, it's dopamine. It's not,
it's
like
so different.
Yeah, exactly. It's a feel good hormone, but it's a hormone that is actually can be detrimental to the pleasure pathways of your brain.
Well, it comes from immediate satisfaction.
Exactly.
Whereas like
which is a fake connection.
Yeah. Whereas the oxytocin and other hormones like come from the actual connection, and like it's not like some immediate little like short spurt, you know?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know how to explain it, but I get what you're saying, and it's good. I like what you're saying.
I know. I feel like we're on the same page, but I don't know if we're doing a good job at explaining it.
I hope you understand.
Yeah. It's addictive is basically what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. Whereas like it's more of a true, like whenever you actually hang out with somebody in real life versus, you know, just like thinking you're connecting with people like via social media or whatever. Whenever you hang out with somebody in real life and you like go for a walk and you spend time together and it's so intentional.
Yes.
And I think that's the difference, is like the intention behind it, and like having a true friendship with somebody or a true connection with somebody, it feels really good.
Yeah, I agree with you. I like that. It's like it's just that nice like healthy connection. And it because you feel like seen and valued, you know, and whereas like you can't really feel seen and valued on social media, at least not in the way that you feel it like in this room, like between you and me. Sure. But I mean, I think you can feel seen and valued, but it's like different. It's not, I just don't think it releases that. I don't know. I think that'd be interesting. We should have researched that before doing this. But it's like, I wonder if like, you know, like influencers or celebrities like get a release of oxytocin because because they're connected to people that like follow and love them, but
it's not like a true connection,
but not for like the fans, because the fans don't feel like, the fans don't get like personally seen and like valued.
That's true. Yeah, it's like a different. Yeah.
Anyways, that's just a totally different tangent.
But yeah, what are some ways that what's some stories from you?
Yeah, so
about
like,
connection,
keeping us on track. But yeah, I think like there's, you know, that like big group connection. Like there's been times where just is how I got into this whole thing where I like, you know, you're fearful of going out and being with people.
Yeah.
And so there's been times where like I've been invited to my friend's birthday party or housewarming party, and I'm like, I don't want to go. I don't want to do this. And I hype it up to be this horrible experience in my mind, like literally dreading it up until like we're there. And then I get there and I'm like, oh, this isn't so bad. And like, I actually find myself enjoying it. And then like we stay and like I have a good time. And, you know, I don't regret going. Like there's very few times where I've gone out and I've like truly regretted like going out and having time, like spending time with people.
Yeah.
And so I think it's just goes to show like that even in that social anxiety, when we open ourselves, when we like allow that fear to be seen and just be like, hey, like I see you. And at the same time, like, I know that this is important for my health. Like, I leave feeling more connected and seen than I do if I don't go.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. And I know, like, too, with, like, what you were, like, what you've said about events like that, and even what you just now said, like, I feel like, for me, and it sounds like for you, too, like, it's like, I often think about, things like we've talked about before, like we almost like create like a false narrative in our head, like you're thinking about the events that could happen, or like, oh, like what if this happened while we were, and it's like, it's so unrealistic. Right. And so then whenever you go to the event and then you're just letting yourself like be there and be present and like experience the people that you're with and have conversations with the people you're with, and you're not like thinking about all these unrealistic things because you're present in the moment. And so then you actually have a good time. And like we've said before, like that adds to that that knowledge bank of like being like, okay, this was a good time, and you like proved yourself wrong. And then it goes in like to go forward in the future, you can think about that next time that you're gonna, you know, go out and be with people and be like, oh yeah, I did have a good time. Like it is possible to have a good time.
It is possible. I like that you brought that up from our motivation and routines podcast.
Yeah, that's the one. I can remember when we said that, but yeah.
Because it is like, you know, there's more times where, and like when I think about it logically, I'm like, I actually have more times where I've, you know, felt good after I've left a social interaction than not. Yeah. And like, I need to focus more on that than when I'm like fearing it, you know, because like, and it goes back into like anxiety and fear. Anxiety and fear has a lot of control over our behaviors if we let it. And so we do have to actively intervene and like say, no, like this is no, ma'am. Nope. And just say like, that's not you, let go of the wheel.
yeah And like, you know, and go and prove yourself wrong, and like
build up your data.
Yeah, exactly. Build that data. Yeah. But that's a really good point. And you know, it's like that lake trip that I told you about that was like a whole year ago, but I still think about it because, you know, like me and my husband were invited to go out in the lake with one of my coworkers invited me and one of my friends. And the only people that I knew was like her and her husband, and there was going to be a big group there. And me and my husband were both like, this is not our typical thing to go hang out with people we do not know. Like we're both like, I don't know. And so, you know, we were just kind of like, well, let's just go. Let's just see, you know?
Yeah, why not?
And it ended up being a great time. And I remember telling you about it because I was like, wow, like we actually...
Like I remember us talking about it, and I was like, we were like, wow, that sounds like you had such a good time. Yeah. And like you had hyped it up to be like really, you were really nervous about it.
Yeah, we were just like nervous because we were like, oh, and I remember because we were like renting a pontoon and going out on the lake all day, and we were like, we're gonna be like stuck there. Like how awkward would it be to be like, can you like go drop us off like back at our car, you know?
We'd like to go home.
Yeah, like we knew it was a full day event, and so we got nervous about it because we were like, oh, we don't have a way out, like we're gonna be stuck in this scenario. And then it turned out like it was so much fun, and we had a great time, and we were like talking with new people we had never spoken to before, and it was just like a lot of fun. And it was one of those times where I was like, okay, like why did I think this was gonna be such a terrible time to go hang out with these people? I don't know, you know?
Right. I think that's a good, yeah,
I don't know, it's interesting because sometimes like you just realize how much you're overthinking a scenario, and how like human connection, it does feel good.
Yeah, it feels so good. And I think too, like, you know, it doesn't just take like a group of people to feel that connection and feel seen and valued. True. Like all it takes is really like one person, you know. And I think about recently I was like had a very anxious night. My husband was gone on a work trip. It's been a while since he's gone on a work trip, and I got super, super anxious about it, and I was like on the verge of like a panic attack, and like and I calmed myself down. Didn't have one. We're doing great. Girlfriend is like, I'm so proud of myself. Like I've been doing really good with like my coping skills and like breath work. And so that's awesome. Pat on the back. Yes. Good job, Jolyn.
Pat yourself on the back.
Yes. And then, so he was gone on this trip, and the day he left, like I was like, nope, you have to do this alone. Like like don't be weak, kind of like a negative self-talk that we've like spoken about before. I was like, and I could tell like I wanted to just be with somebody, you know, like I just didn't want to be alone that day. And like that's like a lot of the times I'm okay with being alone, but that day I like just really wanted to be with somebody, but I wouldn't let myself have that, which is so interesting because I've been trying so hard to listen to my body, and I'm like, but you don't get to have control over that. Like, and it's like, that's not true. Like I get to have control. I get to ask if people will show up for me.
Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with that either.
Right. And like, but my main person was gone, and like, you know, he was on a trip and could not be with me. But I didn't let myself ask until like I got to a point where my bowels got involved.
That's when you know you've gone too far. You're like, oh, should have done something.
Should have started this earlier. So yeah, like I have a funny story. I play Sims.
Do you?
I do. And on Sims, there's this option, like, so your Sims go through all these emotions and like all this funny stuff, right? Like they have like, because they're real. But like they have like emotions, and one of the emotions they experience is fear. And so like in like if you click on things, it gives you like fear options when they're experiencing fear. So like you can go like hide under the covers, or like you can go take a spooky shower, or another option on the toilet, which is why I thought about this, is you can take a panicked poo.
Is that what it says like on the screen?
Yeah, it says panicked poo ?
That's really funny.
And I was just like, that's so relatable. Like,
that is a very like deeply human experience, I think.
So comment below if you also have the panicked poo option in your own life.
Honestly, comment if you've never had one, because
like that's actually
that would both. Just comment either way. Have you or have you not?
Like I know for me, my anxiety manifests very bowely.
Yeah.
That's not the word.
Very gastrointestinally.
Yeah. Definitely.
But there's a reason for that.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to go into it, but yeah, like, like the mind gut connection, and I'm done. I'm not going to talk about it, but
But yeah, so like, anyways, panicked poos. So I was like, called my mom, cause I was like,
it's too late.
It started, and I was like, and usually once I start the poos, I lose control. This is too much. I'm doing too much right now. I'm trying to find a way to like retract, but I can't. Anyways, just keep going. I'm just going to keep trucking.
So what happened when your mom came over?
Yes. So back to the reason we were talking, connection, not about my, anyways.
So Jean Ellen comes in the door.
So I called my mom, and she obviously, I was like, can you come over and spend time with me? Because I should have called her earlier, because I wanted to call her earlier, but I waited till like I really needed help. And so she came over, and I could tell she didn't want to stay the night, but sweet angel lady that she is, she stayed the night with me and sacrificed herself, like her sleep.
She's an angel.
Yeah, because she loves sleeping in her own bed, which I totally understand. But I was like, please stay the night with me. And she did, because she's the best mom in the world. And like, I love her to pieces, you know, because she's just like, she's my person, you know. But like, so she came over and she like stayed with me, and like we didn't like do much, like, because I was in and out of the bathroom, you know. But like just having her there was so comforting. Like there was just something that like my mind stopped racing the way that it was when my mom showed up. And I think it's just because there was somebody else sharing that space with me, somebody else that was like, I see you and I value you even when you're not at your best, you know. Like, because when I'm like in like an anxious state of mind, a more anxious state of mind, it's hard for me to conversate, be like be logical, you know, like, you know. So it's like I have a harder time with that. And see, I get really tired when I get anxiety, like especially when I'm coming down from it. I just get so exhausted.
It's exhausting.
Sleepy.
Yeah.
And so like she was like with me through all of that. But just like, I mean, it was crazy because like once I reached out, I could validate myself for doing what I needed. And then she showed up, and like, it was just nice to have somebody to like just be with me and like just share space with me. And so it really does, like, all it takes is like one person to like have that connection with you to where you feel seen and valued just existing as you are. And I think that's such like a beautiful thing to share with somebody, even in the midst of panicked poos. But
no, it's true. And I think it is like, true. You know, like you were saying before, that just having somebody else with you can be like very grounding, is what you had said. And like, it was very grounding for her to be there with me. Like I sat on the ground after that, because one, I just like, even sitting on the ground helps. But just like, I think her being there allowed me to slow down enough to where I could sit on the ground, if that makes sense. But she's a very grounding person for me. And I think it's good to like know those people for you, like who, you know, like who are you gonna call whenever you need somebody who will make that space for you. And just like, even if it's just sitting in silence or it's listening to you, because, you know, I mean, there's a reason why like we as people, as humans, like feel the need to vent to one another. Like whenever I feel like coming over to your house and like, you know, venting or talking through like some of my fears or things that I'm worried about, you know, it's not that you actually fixed it for me, you know, like we talk about how we wish we could fix, like, you know, the people that we love, like we want to just fix everything for them. And sometimes it feels helpless whenever somebody is like coming to us with their fears and we can't do anything about it. Like sometimes there's situations where we're like, we can't fix that problem.
It feels big.
But it's like it's just, you know, it's so helpful sometimes, even just like having, or it always is, I feel like helpful just having somebody sit and listen to you. And like you said, it makes you feel seen and heard, and it makes you feel like you're not going through it alone. And like what you were saying about, like how you pointed out, like how you were like trying to enforce that hyper independence, like you were like, no, I can do it alone, and that you said that you felt weak, like that's I feel like that's such a common thing, and I know I've gone through that as well, where you know, I don't want to reach out to anybody because like you get in your own head and you're like, no, I'm being ridiculous, and you start putting yourself down, and you're like, no, I'm good, like I'm just gonna do this myself, and I'm going to like, I'm gonna sit here and I'm gonna freak out and I'm gonna go through it alone. And you know, it's just a lot of times like someone else can bring you out of that, and that's part of the reason that we're supposed to have that human connection, because naturally like it can like what you said, like ground you and bring you back to reality, and kind of like snaps you back to like you know, someone, and maybe they can be logical when you can't, and there's that balance. And that's something that's so important, is that,
oh, I love that word. That's, you know, such a good word for this.
Like I feel like with human connection, that's a part of what's so important about it. It's just that like there's that piece of balance where you know, like I feel like there's people, like I personally procrastinate, like I'm a procrastinator, and so like my mom sometimes, like talking about moms, like my mom is somebody who's like really like a go-getter. Like she does not procrastinate. And so sometimes like it helps to balance me out, because whenever I'm telling her, you know, like I'm going on about like, I don't want to do this, I don't want to do this, like she's good about like knowing that about me. But then like she'll be like, okay, like let's like, how about you do like one thing, like how about you get started with this? Or, you know, whenever I think it was when I was in college, I can't remember when it was, but she would come and like help me like clean, because like that used to overwhelm me. And like she would be like, okay, like this is when I was like in the rough of the anxiety, and you know, like it just felt like such a big task for me. And like she would be like, okay, let's just start like right here, let's start in this corner right there, like start cleaning, you know. And it's like I needed somebody to kind of like get me going and like make me do something, because I just was gonna sit there and I was in that freeze mode, you know. And so just the balance of like, you know, the different people in your life, and like, you know, how you want to go to somebody different for different things. Like sometimes you'd rather go to a friend, sometimes you'd rather go to a family member, and it's based on like what you know about their personality and like what you need in that moment. And they can bring something else to the table.
Like how they can balance you out.
Exactly.
Like that's exactly what I think of with my mom. Like my mom and my husband are both very grounded people. Like they're both like not very anxious people. And so like a lot of the times like I will call them if I'm like in that panic state and I'm like, I need help. Please give me your mind. Like, you know, like, so it's like, cause they're both people that stay calm. And like, it's really funny. Cause as I'm thinking about it, like when I get panicked, I like also like, I'm moving back and forth between the bathroom because I'm usually sitting somewhere and like I'll think I'll be okay, and then I'm like, no, not okay. And so like both of them like are very like ground, like they literally like will stay in the same spot. Like they'll just, especially if I'm in one of those like moments. Like my mom, when she came over, she like sat on the couch like the whole time that I was like, because I would like go to the bathroom, I tried to sit down on the couch, and then I moved to the floor, and then I was like going back and forth between the floor, and then I like crawled closer to her, and you know, like but she like stayed in the same spot and was just like a very like secure and grounded person in that. And I think it was just that balance that I could like share that burden with her, and like not that I'm a burden when I'm anxious, but my anxiety feels like a burden to me. And so like, or I hold it like, and that's something I need to work on. But like her being able to come in and for me to share that with her allowed me to experience balance in that moment. So that was really nice. But yeah. What about you? What are some of your experiences with connection?
Well, I feel like one of the times that I felt like how we talked about like feeling a part of something larger than yourself was a big moment for that for me was nursing school, because like I did go through a lot of like anxiety in nursing school. And like I think, you know, something that a lot of us talked about in nursing school was how like we just felt like we were never going to get to like, you know, be nurses. Like we were like, I don't think this is going to work out, because it was so tough. And those classes just, you know, I won't go into it, but if you've ever been to nursing school, you know the trauma. But yeah, I mean, I just remember like there were times that people that we would all encourage each other, and it was really interesting because we would all encourage each other. And like just like it was the first time I think in my life where like people that I didn't even know, like we would step out from like taking a test, and then, you know, like somebody would be like all in their head, and you can like look at somebody and be like, they're freaking out. And so you'd be like, hey, like, and we would talk about like certain questions on the exam, and like we'd be like, hey, you know, like I bet you did better than you think you did, or something like that, just like a comment to make somebody feel better. And there was also people that would bring like lavender essential oil, and like, you know, let everybody else like use it before the test. And I remember in the test room, like there'd be like over 100, 200 people in there, and it would like reek of lavender. Like we probably didn't even need to put it on ourselves, but it would just like, we should have had a diffuser going, but whatever. But you know, it just like reeked of lavender in there, because like everybody would like share their little lavender. And I think like everybody had lavender on their wrist, because like it's like, why would you turn that down, you know? But we were all like huffing the lavender while trying to take our test. But it, you know, it was just,
lavender's so soothing.
Yeah, it helped really. But you know, like it's like we all were going through the same like testing anxiety. And whenever, especially like on exam week, like we were like, our lives are over, like we are never gonna get through this day, you know? And just going through it together. And as you know, like I lived with 3 other girls who like each became great friends, but like each were in the same major as me. And it was so cool, like living with them like each day and like going through such similar things. And you know, it just like we all like came together in that way, and like we were living through the same like anxieties and the same fears and the same like daily like stressors kind of like all the studying and trying to like balance each other out. Like again, you know, like some of us would be better at like encouraging to study, and then others would be like better encouraging like to take breaks, and like, you know, both are important. But you know, just like that's really a time when I felt like I was a part of something, and like, you know, had that sense of like belonging and human connection like in a bigger group. And it was really interesting. And
I love
then
too, because I think about it like each part has like, each system has like different parts to it, right? And so it is like you said, like for not only within your roommate group, but also within like your like nursing program as a whole. Like there's people that were like there for calming, people that were there for like studying tips, like, and then like within your group and your home, like there were people that like were like, hey, let's relax, and people were like no, we need to like get down and study, you know? And so
and
it's
like each part is so important.
Like, and without it there's no balance, like, because if without it, it's like identity versus isolation, like it falls all on you, and that's unmanageable. Like,
you can't like be good at everything.
No.
And I think that's what's so cool about, you know, the importance of human connection is that like each person has like a different part to play in your life, and like each person that you have a connection with is going to bring something else like to the table that is helpful. And you know, whenever you talk with somebody and you like I was saying, like there's a reason that you want to like vent to somebody, and it's not just to talk. Like sometimes it is just like it feels good to talk, but then it's also like, you know, whenever I talk to you about something, like you'll often like come up with something that I hadn't even thought about. And I'm like, oh, that's comforting. You know, like it's useful conversation. It's not just, you know, it's not just venting to vent. Like it often brings up a conversation where I learned something, like from either that you've been through something similar, or like you just have something that you can, like our brains are so different. And so you can think of something, hearing the words that I'm saying, you can think of something that I didn't think about that's helpful. And so that human connection is just like so important.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But I think, is that it?
Let me check my notes.
Because other than that, we can wrap it up.
Yeah, no, I think that's all. Just, you know, the importance, like I think our main thing is just like the importance of like being a part of something bigger than yourself, and like the way that feels, and not trying to be hyper independent, and not thinking like you can do it all and you can carry it all, and like share that weight with other people. Right,
exactly. Because I think it's like at the end of the day, like it's like you don't have to do this on your own. That's not how it's meant to be, you know? Like we said, like that's community brings balance to life, and like we need balance, like the world needs balance, and like that's how we find our balance in this world, is by leaning on others and trusting in others, and like trusting ourselves to find the right group for us. And, you know, like
that's true.
It's important, you know, it's important to have that connection, because it does have a huge impact on like our ability to develop and like how we define ourselves. And so like you don't have to do it on your own. And exactly. You shouldn't do it on your own.
No, you shouldn't.
You shouldn't do that.
But share a story if you have one. We'd love to hear, you know, just an example of how you've experienced the value of human connection and the importance of it, or maybe like when you realized how important it was.
Exactly. Yeah. Thank you so much for listening. Remember that we're all learning.
And don't be afraid to get confrontational this week.
Keep it cute until we meet again. Cheers.
Cheers.